Hello, Diablo 4 fans. I'm Mr. Skibbs. I used to stream on Twitch. I don't anymore. I might go back to it. I'm not sure. Depends on how this video goes. You'll probably notice this is on a fresh YouTube channel. If you don't mind liking and subscribing, that would help me out a lot, as I do plan to continue moving forward, making informative videos, feedback, reviews, guides, what have you. But we'll see what happens in the future. So let's just get right into it. Diablo 4. The game it's a beautiful game. I'm just going to get the good out of the way first. Creatively speaking, the game is fantastic. It's beautiful. There's a lot of depth. It's large. It's massive. Everything looks good. You might notice I have the game on the low asset pack. My computer's on the low end, and it still looks pretty freaking good in spite of that. And I love it. The look, the feel, the music, the ambience, all of it comes together really nicely. The way it's engineered, the NPCs, as if you're in a quest area and an NPC walks past your character and they're talking, you actually hear them talking, move across from one ear to the other. It's great. It's engineered really well. They did a lot. They put a lot of work into it. You can tell. The creative team really knocked it out of the park. 9 out of 10, easily. One of the greatest games I've seen and felt and experienced in a while in that regard. But that's just creatively speaking. Now, in terms of gameplay, however, there are a lot of problems that a lot of other content creators that are more established have touched on. So I want to try to avoid touching on the things that some of them have done too much, but if I do double up on it, it's probably just because I'm really feeling it and I want to express that it adamantly, I adamantly believe that it needs to change. So yeah, let's talk about what's wrong with the gameplay. Now, one of the first problems for me that I've encountered as a controller player, I'm playing on PC with controller. I played Diablo 3 on console, and it was a lot of fun. I actually got it after Reaper of Souls, so I was way late to the party, but I still enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun. I don't get why people were complaining about the look. I didn't find it too colorful and stuff like that. That's just weird. But I thought the game was good. The end game grind of Greater Rifts was a little boring and repetitive over time, so I'm glad that they kind of moved away from that. However, I wish it's something they retain, because I think some things like that hold some merit and value to some players, and they might be fun to do, like when you just want to jump into the game and monotonously grind, random dungeons without too much restrictions or thought going into it. Maybe you have like an half hour to play. You just want to bang out a couple. So you just go in, you do it, and then you get out of there. It's something easy to get into and get out of. So I hope they do look into bringing something like that back. However, I'm glad they implemented all these various systems, like the Whispers, the Helltide, the bosses, the Legion events. There's a lot of stuff. And then you have the dungeons, which I'm just going to dive right into dungeons now that I'm mentioning it and thinking about it. I'm probably, over the course of this video, because it's unscripted, I'm unedited, I don't really have the means to do that stuff or the desire to do all that stuff right now, but we'll see moving forward. But dungeons, as you can see, I'm a necromancer. I have no movement. I actually play, I'm in the class of people, I'm actually making the game harder on myself unnecessarily, and I know this is a problem for me, that not everybody's going to feel that I should probably just change. But I don't think that changes the merit or the value of the problem itself. I have no movement speed on my boots. I don't have movement speed on my necklace. Unfortunately, my necklace and my boots rolled really well for other valuable stats that weren't movement speed. So I had to let that go. So all I have is a dodge. Granted, I have the boots that give you the cooldown. I think every time you use an attack, you get 1.5-second cooldown on the dodge. So I can get my dodges back pretty fast. So I try to utilize the dodge a lot. So problem number one, after dodging on a controller, now this isn't necessarily dungeon related, but it gets you killed a lot in dungeons. After dodging on a controller, frequently you could just not take any further actions. You can't move, you can't attack, you can't do anything except for dodge again. Maybe you can wait and then it'll fix itself, but it takes way too long. If you mash the dodge button, however, you will be able to dodge again. That sometimes fixes the problem. After the second dodge, you can then move again. Sometimes it just recycles the problem, and you'll dodge, can't move, dodge again, can't move, and it's just like, Meanwhile, I'm dodging away from enemy attacks, and then I get stuck with my back to the enemies, and they're just pounding me in the ass, and I'm dead. It's not a good feeling. I'm glad I chose to not play hardcore, considering all of the problems that there were going into this game. Because, yeah, I would have gotten killed so many times over, and I probably wouldn't be making this video. I probably wouldn't be playing this game anymore, to be completely honest with you. So, movement, dodging, fix that, please. Fix that error with dodging. I haven't even seen you address it, really. At least address it that you know it's an issue, so we can move forward knowing that you're going to look forward into fixing that, and it's only going to get me killed for now. But dungeons, they're too big. People complain about the density, but most classes don't really have the problems with movement that Necro has, so they're not going to feel this as much as me. But I feel that the density in dungeons is actually fine. The problem is the vastness of the dungeons. And sometimes to go from pack to pack, I have to walk down this long-ass hallway. Just make the dungeon smaller. Categorically speaking, if smaller dungeons with the same amount of enemies will be more dense. If people's problem is density, and other people's problem is the size of the dungeons, just reduce the overall size of the dungeons. This will solve both problems, right? I don't know. You also talked about trying to fix backtracking, but you do these weird things where you'll go into the dungeon and it's like, here's the altar, now go kill the Animus enemies for the altar, and you have to go further into the dungeon. Sometimes, yes, it loops around. Sometimes it doesn't do it in a way that you maybe intended, and it often creates a scenario where you have half the Animus, and then here's the altar, and then you have to go find the other half of the Animus, and then walk all the way back. Or if it's like you have one of the gate switches, and then you have to go find the other one, and then come all the way back. Or maybe you have one gate switch, and you encounter another gate switch, and then you have to find the gate, and then go back to this gate switch thing, activator, or bloodstone, whatever they are, relic, and then you have to go back to the door. It's so weirdly asinine. Like, you have to fix this. Make it linear if you have to, in a sense where, in my belief, you walk into a dungeon, you should immediately interact with one of the objectives. Like, say it's a bloodstone. Like, oh, what's this? Your character just interacts like, oh, what's this? Oh, it's a bloodstone. I have to take this to the altar. So then you walk up to, then you meet the altar, and then it makes a perfect loop where you get the other bloodstone in the loop, and then you come back to the altar. I don't know. I know it's going to take a lot of work to try to figure this out. It may be too much work, even. If you can just make the movement speed of each and every class linear, maybe it'll be fine. I think Necro suffers the most from this. Wizards can just teleport often through large portions of the map, completely trivializing the whole ordeal. Rogues are super freaking fast. I've seen some pretty fast druids, because I think they have a movement skill, increased movement speed, or whatever. And then Yeah, rogues and barbs are just insanely fast. So when you designed these dungeons, I think somebody forgot that Necro doesn't have a movement speed. Like, the people that designed Necro and the dungeons just weren't working in tandem, and it's unfortunate. So this class really suffers. Please fix the dungeons in that regard, solve the backtracking issues, solve the slowness of this class. I've made this suggestion on the forums and in some YouTube comments, but I'm going to make it again here. Maybe a passive buff to the Book of the Dead, where if you're sacrificing your minions, you get like a flat 5% movement speed increase, but when you have your minions, you get 1% movement speed increase per minion. That way, if you're rocking a full minion build, you have at least the comfort in knowing that the more minions you keep, the more passive movement speed, and that'll help a little bit. It still doesn't give you a movement skill, but it helps if we're passively just faster. I think that might be the best solution, because instead of, you have to rework the trill, you have to rework the skill tree to add a movement skill, or rework a skill entirely to make it a movement skill, unless you just make this class passively faster, and maybe that will trivialize some of the, ground effects you have and stuff you want to people to have to deal with as a Necro, but I don't know. All I know is you can't leave it suffering like this, because it severely limits the speed at which this class can clear things, both solo or even keep up in a group. Like, in group play, I'm often getting to the crowd of mobs when it's already dying, and I hit a boss like once. Like, maybe you can also make the leash, the attack, the aggressiveness of the skeletons a little more. There's often times where I'm attacking a mob and it's like on the edge of my screen. I can attack it no problem. Some of my minions can attack it no problem. But then my golem and some of my skeletons and maybe a mage or two will just come back and sit there. It doesn't make any sense. If I'm able to attack the enemy, my minions need to be able to attack the enemy. Please raise their attack leash a little bit. I'm trying to think. Did I cover everything that I really wanted to in dungeons? The backtracking, the size, burst density. You've already addressed the Nightmare Dungeon rewards, and that's great. Thank you. I look forward to the change in that. I think that's probably it for dungeons. Oh, no. One more thing. Dungeons. When I go into a dungeon, if I do the same dungeon twice, I know you want to avoid people farming the same dungeon. I'm not really one of those kind of people, but sometimes I'll get 2 Nightmare Sigils, and I'll run those 2 Nightmare Dungeons in a row of that same Nightmare Dungeon. I've noticed that going into that same dungeon twice in a row, the layout changes. And I get why you do this, because you want a lot of variety in the gameplay. But this also creates this weird immersion breaking. You're all about immersion, right? That's why you don't want the overlay map. It creates this immersion breaking reality where it's like, I just went in this dungeon, cleared it, and now I'm going back into it, and now suddenly some like mystery architects came in and just completely, revamped the dungeon, and in doing so they unearthed a new evil, and that's how the mobs repopulated. I don't know, I'm just talking out of my ass here. I think that's freaking stupid. I appreciate the fact that it's random, but I think after completing a dungeon the first time, the map should then be available to you, so you know where the event is. If you want to go do the event before you conquer the dungeon, you can do that. You want to go to the Bloodstone before you get to the gate, you can do that. After you clear a dungeon the first time, the map should then be unclear and show you objectives on the map. This will also help solve the backtracking issue. If I know where to go, I don't have to get lost and backtrack. I know these are not intended designs for the game, but they are solutions. They're simple solutions to a lot of people's problems, and I think what you really want is get players having fun and not getting frustrated and wanting to leave the game, because yeah, the more time spent in your game having fun, the better. That doesn't excuse broken things. I believe in your philosophy in nerfing the broken stuff, the absolutely broken builds, and not buffing just everything. But yeah, like obviously certain things really need to be buffed, like Necro's movement speed, and really needed to be nerfed, like Barbarian and the permanent immunity that used to be on Necro. I don't know if it still does that because I don't play that build. Um, but yeah, like I said, I'm playing the game on hard mode unnecessarily for myself. I don't use Blood Mist. I don't even have any sort of like immunity. I have fortification from the passive from corpse generation, but that's about it. I don't really have any life on my gear. It's mostly attack damage. If I get hit once, I'm basically dead. And that's fine. I like playing that way. That's like hardcore for me. Even though I'm not playing on hardcore, I don't want to lose all my progress. But I do like the punishing aspect of like getting hit. Like I want to move and dodge, through walking and using the dodge skill, and that's about it. And I appreciate also that the dodge skill is not just an iframe. I think iframes in games are easily abused and stupid, but I also think there is some merit to the fact that where like if I'm dodging out of a movement skill or a floor effect like a frozen orb and it clips me on the edge, like that's bullshit. So maybe it needs a 1 second immunity, but a global cooldown on that 1 second immunity to every 5 or 10 seconds. So maybe you can't do it every dodge, but every other dodge, I don't know. Yeah, I really don't know. I just think that really sucks that when oftentimes I dodge, the action of the dodge is completely trivialized by the fact that I'm getting hit. Anyway. So moving forward, what else? What else about the game is frustrating? How about just the live stream? You guys, they touched on some things in the live dev stream that I wanted to talk about. The first thing is like aspects of things that are in, well, actually no, let me say the first thing is that you think we expect changes to happen overnight, and that is not the case at all. We just want to know that you are aware and you want to fix it. That is enough. Okay? That is more than enough. I don't need to hear that the solution to my dodging problem or the necro speed or the dungeons being too vast is going to happen overnight, because I know that's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take some serious coding effort and design effort, and I honestly wish you wouldn't have to go through it at all. But it's a necessary evil, and however long it takes is fine. Just when issues come up and you feel like they haven't been addressed, just address them. Even if it's Adam on the Twitter saying, hey, we know that the dodging is causing freezing on some players. Here's a workaround, or don't get discouraged. We're working to fix that. We're working to fix the server issues. Stuff like having a catch on your nightmare sigil. I know you're already changing nightmare sigils. And I don't know if this will be a problem moving forward after the fix. It probably will. But sometimes you crash going into the dungeon or crash traveling to the dungeon. And then when you come back into the game, the sigil's gone. There needs to be some kind of catch where if you use a sigil and you do not go into the dungeon, like it's lost in transit or whatever, maybe you open one by accident and you forget to go in it, and you stop playing, or you don't have time to play, and you shut the game down. Some kind of a catch where you don't lose the sigil, or it's returned to you, or maybe an equivalent powder is returned to you for that level's sigil. That's up to you. It's not the end of the world losing them, but it's one of those things that gets frustrating when you're like just trying to play and have fun, and like every third dungeon it's like, oh well, there goes another sigil because of a crash or a server issue. um, so yeah, just the easing the blow of some of these issues is better than fixing some of them, I think. So consider that, in the temporary, finding band-aids for some of the easier to solve problems. But yeah, so we don't expect immediate results, but we do expect at least acknowledgement that our problems are real and you care. Now, the next thing I want to talk about, this is actually, wow, 20 minutes of me just yapping when I was actually nervous about starting this. I'm a ranty kind of person. Once you get me going, I really get going. So I think this was good and it was therapeutic. So if you made it this far, thank you. I'm going to try to wrap it up soon. The other thing that was touched on was Tiffany, I believe her name was, mentioned. A lot of people ask, well, this was in Diablo 3, that was in Diablo 3, why isn't it in Diablo 4? And she said it's a process, blah, blah, blah. We're, looking into implementing different things and whatever into the game. And I think where there's a lack of understanding between the two sides here, where I'm not sure how to phrase this. They think that we just man, yeah, I don't know how to phrase this, so let me just rephrase the sentiment entirely. There's miscommunication when we ask why something that was in Diablo 3 isn't in Diablo 4. Like, for me, that is like certain control implementations for the controller, or certain design features, like the overlay map, for instance. A lot of people are asking about, which I'm okay with you getting rid of. I'm in the camp of I didn't like having it on my screen all the time, although it was incredibly useful. Some kind of mid-ground solution would be great. But when we ask about, why isn't this in the game, and you're like, oh well, it's a process, it takes time. It's annoying to hear that, like, you learned these lessons in Diablo 3. Like, players like this, they don't like that. We should add this, we should remove that. Stuff like that. That you seemingly moved into Diablo 4 and forgot all of that stuff. And it's really annoying. So I feel like she shouldn't have even said anything there, or even addressed that at all, because she kind of like tripped over her own feet and created this scenario where it's like, yeah, we want these things that were in Diablo 3 because they were good, and you learned about that quality of life over those years. Why wasn't that philosophy moved forward into the new game? Why do you have to re-establish the philosophy? Why do you have to relearn lessons that you've already learned in the past game? So I just thought that was absolutely stupid and obnoxious. And just fess up. Look, if you forgot to add certain things, or you didn't know how to implement certain things because you had certain designers back then, just fess up to it. You know what I mean? There's nothing wrong in being honest in the fact that, like, we didn't know how to do that. You never know, because this is how, like, new relationships are formed. Maybe there's somebody out there in the community that knows how to fix your problem, and maybe you can find a new valuable employee or business relationship with a third-party development team that knows how to implement certain things. I don't know. I feel like this isn't just a Blizzard problem. This is an industry-wide problem that, like, people are just too up in their own ego, their own heads, that, like, they can't work together with other companies as much. So I'm not gonna rag on Blizzard for this too much. But yeah, if you have a problem, you don't know how to fix it, just reach out. Reach out to people, reach out to the community, hire some additional resources, or at least just admit that you're you're not sure how to transition certain systems from one game or into the other, or why, or at least why you believe the implementations of those features won't fit, like the overlay map, which I completely understand. Although the excuse does not entirely make sense, because my immersion's actually broken more by the fact that I'm going into my map every 5 seconds. It's like, oh, okay, I have to go over here for the objective, and then I reach an intersection. It's like, well, did I make a left here, or was it at the next left? And I think it's the first left, and I make a left, and it's like an annoying little roundabout loop thing. And I'm like, no, it must have been the first major left, the first intersection. But I can't see on the mini map. The mini map's way too small, way too restricting. I can't see that I was supposed to make this second larger left than this first one. So your design philosophy and your excuses for them need to match up as well. But anyway, yeah, I don't want to add another 10 minutes or 20 minutes onto the runtime. I think I've given enough feedback for now. If I think of more, I will make another video, and hopefully people like and subscribe and give me added incentive to come on back and make more videos. And if you'd like to see me stream on Twitch, I'll consider that as well. Just keep in mind, I'm on a laptop. That's why I didn't go full screen this whole time. If I did, you'll notice all the weird colorization particles and failures going on. So yeah, keep that in mind. I'm going to try to get back into streaming. I'm going to try to get back into more videos. Just like and subscribe, and yeah, enjoy the game as much as you can until Season 1. Peace.